They weren't taken in the night. They were taken in broad daylight, on beaches they had walked their whole lives, by men who smiled at them, who offered gifts, who promised work and wages in return. And then the ship left, and they never came home. This is not a story most people know, but it should be, because the countries involved, Britain, Australia, Germany, have spent over a century making sure it stays buried. And the nations whose people were taken, the Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea, Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, are still waiting for the world to acknowledge what happened to them. This is the story of the Blackbirding Trade, and once you hear it, you will not be able to forget it. The Pacific Islands in the 1860s were some of the most extraordinary places on Earth. Thousands of islands scattered across the world's largest ocean. Communities that had built civilizations without European contact for millennia. Languages, traditions, architecture, navigation, all of it developed in isolation, all of it thriving. Then sugar changed everything. Britain had colonized Queensland in northern Australia. Germany had moved into Samoa and Papua New Guinea. Fiji had been handed to the British Crown. And all of these colonial operations had one problem in common: sugarcane. It needed to be planted, cut, hulled, processed, and it needed to be done in brutal heat, on flat open ground, in conditions that no white European laborer would accept. So they went looking for workers elsewhere, and they found them in the Pacific. Here's how it worked. And pay attention, because the machinery of this system was designed to be invisible. A ship would arrive off the coast of a Pacific island. Not a warship, a trading vessel, something ordinary. A recruiter, usually white, sometimes working with a local intermediary, would come ashore in a small boat. He would bring gifts: tobacco, bright cloth, fish hooks, small things that felt significant. He would speak through interpreters. He would tell the men gathered on the beach that there was work available. Good work, paid work. 3 years, he said. You will be paid. You will come home. Some men agreed willingly. They were young. They were curious. They wanted wages to bring back to their families. Some were deceived so completely that they boarded the ship believing they were going on a short fishing trip. Some were taken by force. Once on board, the hatch closed. The island disappeared behind them, and the real terms of what had just happened began to become clear. There is a word for this practice: blackbirding. A word so sanitized, so almost poetic, that it disguises what it actually was: kidnapping, coercion, trafficking, enslavement under contract. Between the 1860s and the early 1900s, an estimated 60,000 Pacific Islanders, men, women, and some children, were taken from their home islands and transported to work on Australian, Fijian, Samoan, and other colonial plantations. 60,000 people, from the Solomon Islands, from Vanuatu, from Papua New Guinea, from Samoa, from Tonga, from Fiji itself. Families that went to the beach one morning and never returned. Villages that lost an entire generation of young men in a single decade. Mothers who watched ships sail away and waited for 3 years, and then waited longer, and then stopped waiting. The plantations were not what the men had been promised. Queensland's sugar fields in summer heat were almost unendurable. The men worked from sunrise. They cut cane with long machetes through rows that stretched further than they could see. Their pay, when it came at all, was a fraction of what they had been promised. Often it was taken back by the plantation owner as payment for food, clothing, accommodation. By the end of 3 years, some men had earned almost nothing. The death rates were staggering. Disease moved through the barracks rapidly. Measles, dysentery, respiratory illness. Bodies that had spent lifetimes on Pacific Islands had no immunity to diseases that had crossed continents. Some men died on the ships before they ever reached land. Some died within months of arrival. Their deaths were recorded in ledgers, row after row. Name, island of origin, date of death. The colonial record was meticulous. The system was organized. It was administered. It was bureaucratic. It had government licenses and official forms and regulated procedures. That is the detail that is hardest to absorb. This was not done in the shadows. It was done with paperwork. Britain eventually sent Royal Navy ships to regulate the trade. The Pacific Islanders Protection Act was passed in 1872. Regulations were written. Inspectors were appointed. And almost none of it worked. The blackbirding captains knew how to disappear into vast ocean. They knew how to alter ship manifests. They knew which harbors asked no questions. And the plantation owners knew how to keep the labor coming. because the profits from sugar were too enormous for the colonial governments to truly want it to stop. In Germany's Pacific territories, Samoa, Papua New Guinea, the same pattern played out under German colonial administration. Different flags, same system, same ships, same locked hatches. The Pacific was being emptied, island by island, generation by generation. And then came 1901. Australia federated. The new nation passed the Pacific Island Labourers Act. The law said that all Pacific Island workers in Australia would be deported, sent back to their home islands. The plantations would now be worked by white Australians only. 60,000 people had been brought to build an industry. Now the industry was built, and the people were no longer needed. Some had lived in Queensland for 20 years. They had children born on Australian soil. They had built communities, formed relationships, buried loved ones in Australian earth. They were given weeks to prepare. Then they were put on ships. Some were sent back to the wrong island. Some were sent to islands they had never come from. Some were elderly. Some were sick. Some had no community left to return to. The villages they had left had changed completely in their absence. Britain said nothing. Germany said nothing. Australia said nothing. The colonial governments collected their ledgers, closed their offices, and moved on. Here is what nobody told you. In the Solomon Islands today, there are families with ancestors who disappeared in the 1870s and never returned. There are communities in Queensland with deep Pacific Islander roots that Australia has never formally acknowledged. There are villages in Vanuatu where oral histories still carry the names of men taken by blackbirders, passed down not in textbooks, but in memory, because the textbooks never mention them. The countries that ran this system, Britain, Australia, Germany, have issued no formal apology. There has been no reparations process, no international tribunal, no monument in any colonial capital that bears the names of the 60,000. The ledgers still exist, filed in government archives. Thousands of names, thousands of islands of origin, just no accountability to go with them. You just watched a piece of history that most people in 6 different nations have never been taught. If you are Fijian, Solomon Islander, Vanuatuan, Samoan, Papua New Guinean, or Tongan, your ancestors are in this story. And this story was hidden from you deliberately. If you are Australian, British, or German, your colonial history is in this story too. And it was made comfortable enough to ignore. Neither is acceptable. This video cannot stay in one place. If this reached you, it was meant to reach someone else through you. Share this, not because the algorithm needs it, because 60,000 people were erased from history, and the least the world can do is say their name. Subscribe to this channel. We are not done. The next story is buried even deeper than this one, and it is already being prepared for you.